And welcome back to everybody who's been following along via Blue Jeans. It's always nice to know that there are multiple ways of coming along, not only to the seminars, but also to the reference and information services group meetings that we hold throughout the year. So when you see those invites go out, say, you know what, I can put aside some time during my day, connect with everybody throughout the rest of the state online with Blue Jeans. It's pretty much the only way that I get to those meetings. Whilst I can fly down for the seminar, I can't always fly down just for the day to go to a reference meeting, but I can still get in, get online, and get connected with everybody else by joining in the meetings with Blue Jeans. So do consider them when the invites go out. They're always fun. We have lots of laughter. And good things come out of them. So presentations for seminars come out of them. Discussion papers come out of them. Sometimes research projects come out of them. So it's always good fun to get together and share lots and lots of ideas with each other, which is what the reference meetings do. Okay, so I trust we all enjoyed our library mocktails. And obviously the ginger one was the most popular because it's like all gone. I didn't get any, but I did get the grape expectations. It was lovely. Okay, now we're delving straight into desk design. From serving to collaborating. And this is a presentation from Lisa Tyson and Anita Ozols from the University of Western Sydney. And I will hand over straight over to them, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you. So, hello. I hope you enjoyed your lunch and had a good time. We did. Thank you for inviting us, and thank you for having us here today to speak to you. What we wanted to do was to give you a bit of an overview about what the library service has evolved from where to now and where to the future from there. And we actually thought that the desk was a great way to explain or to emphasise that change that we've undergone. The university is made up of 6 traditional campuses, and we also have a couple of newer campuses, which are they're vertical campuses, big tall office buildings with library presence within them. And Lisa's going to talk a little bit more about that. What I wanted to talk about was how we actually looked at our traditional spaces and moved those into newer places. And we've gone very much from big to small in terms of how we deliver our services. So what we used to have, and some of these still exist, are the service desks where we would have these big barriers between us and the clients. That would often have something to do with the power relationship, whether or not we meant for it to be like that. Our students would be a bit reluctant to come up and start talking to us at that point. To try and get around that, because we were sort of stuck with these desks, what we would do is actually come around from outside behind the desk, but there was also sometimes a bit of a reluctance to do that on staff points as well. And that's partly because this is something that we've trained our students to do, to come to us at this big desk where we can help them. They queue up, it's very traditional. But what we don't often do, or what we didn't do, is actually step from behind there and let our other colleagues have to take on the bulk of the queue while we went off and helped someone else. So we really had to change that thinking around. Part of that thinking included these shirts, one of which I'm wearing right now. As well, yeah, to make us very visible. So some staff were a bit reluctant. They were like, "Oh, you're putting us in a uniform," but everybody agreed after we actually took it on that it actually served a purpose, that we weren't being asked so much, "Oh, do you work here? Can you help me?" That kind of thing. It was like we actually became a human resource for our clients themselves. And our clients, when I talk about them, I'm talking generally about university students, alumni, academic and professional staff, and also members of the community. Western Sydney takes a big pride in being part of the community of Western Sydney, and we welcome everyone to come into our libraries. So what we did was we actually looked at the big desks when we had opportunities of refurbishment, or when we actually, in my case where I was very lucky, I'm at the Penrith Campus Library, where we actually were able to build a purpose-built building for our library, 3 years ago, Lisa?
2015, yes.
Yeah, we opened 3 years ago. I'll just point out mine. Mine's in the middle, bottom. That's the library desk that I work at personally. What we did was we actually took away the big barriers and we made a bit of an island desk where people can come up to us from any direction, and we can also leave from any direction. So we don't actually need to go out into their space, and it all just becomes our space. We don't have us and them anymore. At first, staff were really reluctant about this. They saw it as well, what about privacy? What about the fact that somebody can walk up behind me and see what's on the screen? Well, we had to have lots of discussions about what you would have on the screen and so on. We did have the talks about, okay, well, I want to look up something about a different student's record to see when the book is due back or who's got it on loan and all those sorts of things, which the client should not be able to see. So we talked about strategies of actually, explaining to the client like a real adult standing right next to you that I'm just turning this to have a look at something, and then I'll put it back and we can go on from there. And our clients seem to really appreciate that, and it brings out a more equal sort of situation. There are also, what we also brought in was we wanted the desks to be a place where our staff stood at the desk rather than actually were seated there. So we have rosters of 1.5 to 2 hour shifts where people will actually stand at the desk and walk away and walk back, and they're not just standing there the whole time, so they don't get that tired, but it's actually really quite good for them and they enjoy that now. At first they were a bit in two minds about how that would work. When we have our longer shifts, then the desk is actually lowerable and people can sit at it. We can scoot up another chair and another student can sit down as well, so we've got that versatility. It's also really great for when we have our students come in who are actually in wheelchairs, and we do have a few of those, so we can actually talk to them at the same level rather than having, again, this inadvertent power play between client and librarian. In the photo just above there, above the one that I mentioned, yep, the one with the lady wearing the red shirt, this is an approach that we've tried to take across all of our libraries as well. I'll talk about it a bit more towards the end of the presentation. However, I did want to point it out because at those locations where we still have those huge desks, those barriers between us and them, what we've tried to do is bring in zones, and I'll talk about them a bit more later on. But we are still trying to have librarians working side by side in a partnership with the client rather than just being a us versus them. Now, having said all of that, there are still some advantages to big desks because they make really good bars. Now, having said that, I'm sure that those are mocktails on that bar there. And our ex-university librarian, who you can see there holding a bottle, I'm sure that he wasn't expecting any kind of shenanigans going on that time.
He did have his RSA.
Yes. This was also the last, we don't usually have a Christmas party in the library because we can't close the library for situations like fun situations. But what we did do was that this was the last occasion that we had in this particular building before our brand new building became open, so there was a period of about a month or so there that we could still access it to get to collection and so on before everything had moved over to the other one. So I assure you, no student time was harmed in the taking of these photos or in the imbibing of the mocktails. Lisa?
That leads into what we're doing now is the university's changing. We recognise space limitations, that we can't continue to have big campuses, and that means we're developing new libraries in vertical campuses and precincts. And that brings with it its own challenges about services, about how we design and how we actually do service our clients. So we're going from this. This is the new Penrith Library that opened in 2015. It's 6 stories of student space collection with staff at the top. It has silent study, quiet study, group study, open study, computers everywhere. Everything you would expect of a traditional library. We have 23 group study rooms in that building that only students can use. It's not open to staff or the public. So it's very popular and very full. It was our last big library. After this, we were told no more. The university's taking a different strategy, and we're going to vertical campuses and precincts. So this is not our most recent campus. This is Parramatta Square. It opened last year. It's a shared use building, so the ground floor is commercial. So we have retail spaces, we have cafes, we have exhibition spaces. We have an Optus store at the moment, I think. The next 8 levels are university, so we have teaching spaces, we have study spaces, and we have a very small library hub, which we'll point out in a moment. And above us are more commercial spaces. So they're our partners. We actually work with them as a university to do student placements, they do internships, and there's a very strong connection with that corporate world to give our students a leg up into the employment area. But you might be able to see it, you might not, but they're in that plan at the bottom. That is level 1 at PSQ. Within that level, that little tiny space there, is that the one? Yeah, that's the one. That's the library. That's it. That whole space. We did have some issues about, we have quite strict regulatory requirements about student learning, about TESCA requirements to qualify. This doesn't meet them. So we've had quite robust conversations about what we do with this space further on. We are skirting the edges of it because we still have our main Parramatta campus and the students can travel for 20 minutes to go and get the book that they need, but it's not the best service. We then, this year, we go to the next slide, opened our other vertical campus at Liverpool. This is all us. We're almost fully open, so there's 10 stories in this building. We learnt from our mistakes and our design architects learnt from the mistake, and we have a full floor of library in this building, which you can see the plan for there. But again, it barely houses the collection. We will have at the end of this year, we'll have close to 3,000 students in this building on a regular teaching basis. We'll have 14,000 items of collection, and the main collection will still be at our Bankstown campus and on-demand transfer. So while we're moving the core requirements, any research requirements, any in-depth study that students need to do will still need to come from our Bankstown campus at this point. So that's another challenge that we're struggling with, which is where you actually store your collections as we move into smaller spaces and how that gets managed. That said, you'll also see we have reading nooks within the shelving because the students love it. We managed in that top left-hand corner to claw back a silent study area because our students demanded silent study. It was the thing that they said was missing. It's very interesting when you do talk to architects and anyone who is building a new building, they interpret silent as, it's okay, you can talk in there, you talk quietly. And when you say, no, they will complain if they hear the clicking of a keyboard or a rustling of a piece of paper, they just don't get it. So it takes quite a lot of perseverance, and I can see people nodding in the audience going, to get through that concept of what silent really means to someone who really is a library user. So that's where we're at. We are slowly increasing our vertical campuses. There is a new vertical campus planned for Bankstown City, and that will be a precinct, so it will be some engagement with the Bankstown City Library because they'll be directly across from us. Commercial space, open precinct areas, engagement with commercial partners, and it will be another challenge for us to work out in 2 years what we actually get as part of a library. But it will include small desks, and you'll see on the side in that bottom right-hand corner, there's a series of small desks. That's the study smart zones that Anita will talk about right now, in fact.
Okay, I can do that. So obviously we're changing our services, and this is not just in respect to having different space allocated to us and so on, but also because we've actually been listening to what our clients and observing what our clients actually want from us and what they use our spaces for. So there are a few things that I wanted to point out to you as initiatives for us here. One of them that's really popular is the after-hours study hall. This is a service where we actually leave the library open after the librarians go home to sleep. and a security guard comes in and he's the bouncer of the place, basically. So what happens is that students, and it's only available to current staff and students of the university, have to swipe their cards to get in. They come in and they use all of the resources that they can use day to day. They don't have the personal service, so they don't have the kinds of things, the value-added sorts of things that the librarians can offer. There are also a couple of things that they can't access, like we do have library laptops for loan, but those have to be delivered by a human, so that's not on for those. But most of our students actually do bring their own devices now, and as Lisa pointed out before, we have a lot of desktop computers, so there shouldn't be a shortage of people being able to get connected. But they can use pretty much the whole collection. I've seen other libraries where they've had something similar, but where they've locked off the collection for the night hours and so on. But ours is a philosophy of everything pretty much should be available when our students need it. And that's a really popular service. In fact, there was a point at which it looked like we wouldn't be able to continue it, and overnight our students really rose up to demand it back again. So that was actually kind of nice to know that students can still be a bit like
militant.
Yes, they're going to be militant for their rights and what they need.
And just on that, what else was interesting is that we're not the only space that's open at night on campus. So they had information commons space, and they had common rooms, and they had other places they could go to study. But the demand was they wanted the library because that's what they needed, which was a very validating thing for us.
And shows how important it is to the culture of the campus as well. But we don't have, like, a lot of people can't necessarily come in, and we want to still be able to extend our services to those people, just like you all do in your libraries as well. So what we've done is we've actually looked at how we can offer the same sorts of services online. Up there we've got a slide that says about Study Smart Online, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But we also have a service called Information Central, which is where we have a few librarians who actually staff the centralised phone calls that are all coming into the library, the chats. We have a service that operates pretty much the whole time that the library is open within staff hours, not within the study hall hours. And we also have email, and I'll tell you a bit more about Zoom as well. So we've got all these different ways that people can access us virtually as well, because their library is wherever they have a tablet or wherever they have a phone. Study Smart, though, is actually a service that was introduced a few years ago, but we've recently expanded it. Study Smart started as a service that was housed within the library, which we would actually help people, our students, with their writing and their academic integrity and their academic literacies. So they would often typically come along with an assignment question, and they might need some help in actually interpreting what's required of this. Or they might have been somebody who came out of high school and knew how to write essays, but now they're being asked how to write a business report or something a bit different. So it's all to do with how they actually communicate the ideas that they get from their research. So it was a step along their student careers, which the library was very pleased to be a part of. Since then, that's actually come under the umbrella of the library. We've done great things. It's become more permanent. And what we've done is we've actually jumped in on that branding too, because our students really know what Study Smart is. And we've introduced what we call the Study Smart Zone. So the advisors are there. So these are physical advisors, I should say. I've just jumped from talking about Study Smart online advisors to the physical. So we've got them there for a few hours, different times of the days, different places, and so different campuses and so on. But we'll always have in the middle of the day a librarian also available in that same space where they can collaboratively work between what research needs there might be, what needs there might be with helping with referencing and so on, and also how they're going to put all of that together, how they're going to present that as their new knowledge. And that's a very, very popular service. So it's kind of like, you know how at the beginning I talked about, well, we've come out from behind the desk and we're roving and we're walking around with our shirts so that people know that they can ask us questions. Well, now we've also gone into, we still do that, but now we've also gone into a particular time of the day where a student can come in and know, I can sit next to you and I can get that time with you. I don't have to be there competing with putting my hand up and hoping that she'll notice me when she walks past and those kinds of things. Or worse still, feeling like I'm interrupting because she's doing something busy at a desk or whatever. So those are our Study Smart zones. The reason there's also Study Smart online advisors is because we also offer that as an online support system as well. Zoom with the librarian is something that we're just trialling, and I heard the person before us talking about Blue Jean. I think that was what it was called. Is that like a conferencing, a video conferencing thing? So you know what that is? Zoom is the one that we use. And so what we do is we actually let clients let us know when they would like to do something in that format. And what it helps us to do is share screens. It helps us to engage with, face-to-face engagement. It also helps us to, sometimes when you're saying on the phone, you might be saying, can you see where it says library? Can you just click on the word above that or something like that? And you can't even tell if you're actually on the same screen or not. This is actually a really nice way that we can partner with our clients. Like they can be in Tasmania, they can be wherever they need to be, and we can partner with them and help them through that process of finding information. Again, it puts us on an equal footing. It's not this sort of like, okay, now you do this, this, and this. It's more about seeing what they're doing and giving them hints on how to help. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to cover in that one. And now we're yours. You can ask us any questions. Yes. Okay, it's a little bit different on some of the campuses, according to what we've discovered students really want and need. For the library that I work at, which is probably about 3 other libraries that are along the same hours, we actually open at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning. The librarians leave at 9 p.m. and then the library remains open so that a student can come in any time until 11 p.m. on Saturday night. Okay, so the librarians will be coming and going between that time, but a current student or staff member can do that. Then on Sunday we reopen at 9:30 a.m, close at 4:30 p.m, and then we're closed until 8 a.m. on the Monday. So it's almost 24/7, not quite, but that's pretty close. And we did find that on weekends we weren't getting that many people coming overnight anyway.
Yeah, when there are other spaces where they're open, where the students meet and study and work at tables, what resources are they actually accessing in the library when the security guard is there? Books? Or Yep. So they can just look at the books, they can check them out, or they can self-check?
They can self-check, they can return, they can renew, they can use printing, copying, scanning, they can use any of the computers, they can use their own devices, they can use Wi-Fi, they can come in and sleep.
Right.
Yeah, the group study rooms, they can Zoom with other students if they're on campus and the students at home, they can do whatever they need to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's really no restrictions.
Oh, that's great.
I'm just really interested in what portion of your collection accessing, and do you think that eventually, because the collection will be, but your space will be some the students study, not quite socialised, but be and access librarians? Like, how important is books?
We're seeing that that's already happening, that the use of space is more like to be together and to, create knowledge together and so on. So what the books are still important. People are wanting to use them. There's nothing like people, the tactile use of a book. However, we do have a very high uptake of digital information, particularly with our well, it's 2 years old now, our digital textbook initiative, where we were able to say to all first-year students that they could have a free textbook for their prescribed textbook for each of those units, which has actually, I think, increased their usage and their comfort levels with other electronic text as well. So I think that from what I've heard, that Western Sydney is actually very high on the use of digital. But then from what Lisa was saying before, her studies of seeing how the hub, the one at Parramatta, has been used, that actually requires more physical books that we didn't have the space for. So Lisa probably has more to say about that.
So we have an electronic preferred collection development policy, and we have had that for probably around 11 years now. So we have more than 2 million digital items available, and our physical purchasing has dropped significantly. But because of the nature of university teaching and some of the disciplines we teach, some things simply aren't available electronically, and they never will be. They're quite bespoke, one-off publishers or small print runs. They just can't afford to do them digitally, or they won't license that because they want the revenue of getting individual purchases happening. So we will always have collections, but they will shrink. They will certainly shrink. And we are planning for down quite a long road, because we think it will be quite a long tail, smaller collections on physical sites and much more remote or centralised storage. But we're just starting to work on that policy now and how that might work. Part of it is a reluctance on the part of some of our academics to move to digital. They still say, go and buy the print book. So it's encouraging them to also accept that the digital equivalent is actually the full thing. It's not missing the diagrams these days like it used to. It's not missing part of the text. It's not a poor copy. It is actually the real deal.
And as an adjunct to this, I don't know. But why?
It depends on the licensing model. So it depends on your vendor.
Yeah, because currently, I mean, things like overdraft, it's a one.
Yeah, and that's the nature probably of.
No sense whatsoever.
It's probably the nature of the agreement between the publisher and the author, because the more people who can borrow a single digital copy, the less revenue they get. So unless you're paying the equivalent license to cover 30 students borrowing at the same time, yeah. So it depends on the individual company and what platform they have. Certainly our digital textbooks, the e-books, more than one student can have access at any one time. But that's the nature of the educational license that we're under.
Just a comment that came in through online is, can questions be repeated back by the
By us?
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
thanks. Yeah, no, it was just someone
Yeah.
said hard to hear the question. So either say the question really clearly on the microphone, or it will get. Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Yes.
I'm interested in the desk that you can raise and lower, what the mechanism is and how much effort the staff member needs to put into that.
Okay, I can tell you. Okay, so I'll repeat the question. It's about the mechanism of the desk and how easy it is to move up and down. It's really easy. It's the push of a button. I don't know what magic happens under the desk to make that happen. Lisa probably knows better than me. Maybe there are fairies under there pushing it up.
No,
but
not
honestly,
fairies.
any of us can do it. And I reckon, well, sometimes it's that sensitive that you can actually lean against it by accident and you suddenly think, what's the desk doing? It's like, so it's that easy.
Yeah, so it's an electronic mechanism underneath, so it's just a touch button on either side, and there's one on either side of the desk, so you can do it from either end, and it's just literally an up and down mechanism.
There is a company called Instinct Furniture
And that's who
who
these are
supplies
from.
these.
Yeah.
We have one in we have two in our libraries. And they're fabulous. And yes, they use power to run a hydraulic system. You can store the CPU inside the desk, so it's hidden away, and it sits on a little table that goes down and up, as you do. So it suits myself, and it also suits those who are vertically challenged.
See the difference?
And Instinct, they're really great product.
They are, and they're actually very useful. We custom designed this desk, so we took their basic model and worked with their lead manufacturer to actually design it to the size and spec that we wanted.
And you can get all the colours that you want as well.
Yes.
And pairing it with the swivel for the monitor is excellent, because there's nothing more inclusive than to be actually able to move around to show your client that they don't have to be the ones to move. The other thing I really like about it as well is that you can be on any side of that desk. It really doesn't matter. So you it's really around what the interaction is rather than the, us and them.
And then I was just wondering, so when the two people are sharing the desk, does it have to be the same height?
No, we don't have any kind of heightist rules like that in our rostering.
Well, no, it does.
It does? What?
Yeah. So I it doesn't have to stay at the same height, but if you've got two people of different heights, yes, it's a single surface, so it's all or nothing, up or down. I think that was actually the question. Yeah. You can get ones that do different heights, but we actually have because we're not RFID, because we simply can't justify the money to convert. We actually have our desensitizer recessed under the desk in the middle, so there was no way we could split it and make that work.
So it's either someone sits on a stool or someone sits on a chair. Any more questions? Yes. Thank you all for providing me with my 1,000 steps today.
I was just wondering if you're open to site visits in your vertical branches.
Yes, we are. Is that a quick one? We're actually hosting a site visit for Charles Sturt University students. We do one every year for those, and we do a number of visits. So certainly get in touch and we can organise something to happen. We will put some block-out periods on it because there are times of semester where we're very busy with our incoming students, but certainly we're open to site visits.
I'm interested to know about steps that you took to move from being barrier desk to these desks. The steps you took with your staff.
Well, it was a lot of discussion, really. What was happening at this time was that we actually had two libraries that were merging to become one in this brand new building. So it was a great opportunity. One of the things there that we saw as well was that I actually had the opportunity to bring two teams together and create them as a new team. So the same people, but they needed to start thinking a bit differently. I challenged them around, how they were going to do the things that they did every day and took for granted that, that the dock was always on this level and that we would be, that the sorting shelves were on that level and all those kinds of things. So there was lots that we needed to go through. And so what I really wanted to do with them was to actually get them to self-direct a bit and to talk about how they saw it working, how they would like to be rostered on it. There were a few givens that I gave them that was, well, we are going to be standing up. But around that, I can listen to what your rostering needs are, what you think. We can try things out and I'll always listen to what the response is and we'll figure it out together. And this will actually be part of our team building situation where neither team that existed previously was right or wrong. It was just a matter of, okay, we're in a new environment. We need to try things out. It was really advantageous to have that excitement of moving into a new building as well, though. I have to say that. I don't know that, in some of the other teams that I've worked and so on, where there's been a really long-term established way of doing things, I don't know that it would have been that easily accepted. But I have to say that I was really pleased when we actually had a presentation to staff and a couple of my library technicians stood up and gave a presentation to about as many people as you have here, very shy people, and they actually ended with saying that they really liked it now. And yes, they started off very tentatively about it. They didn't like that, because behind the desk we have to have some drawers and things because you have to have things that you can give to the clients and so on. So it was all a bit of like, well, how's this going to work? But it did. It was good.
My big voice. I'm curious, how do you manage queue? Like, do you get a level of urgency from people?
Sure. So the question was around how we handled queues. Well, our queue, we've done a lot of work in actually identifying who, by their body language and so on, who actually wants help. We don't actually have anyone coming and physically queuing at the desk, but they'll sort of linger around there, and we'll have a couple of people who are rostered and they'll be sort of between them, they'll be sort of managing that. We'll also have a backup librarian who'll be somewhere in the area, probably sitting at a student computer, and she or he will be also keeping an eye out there as well. So it's very ad hoc, really. And I think that it just comes with the experience of knowing the space and getting an idea of how people present themselves when they need help. It's also been a lot about when you're actually working with a client and being able to judge pretty quickly about whether or not that's something that you can leave for a second to ask if, you know, what this person's after and direct them appropriately. So it's a lot of that kind of relationship building and understanding how people are taking things. Having said that, of course, we're all in the public environment where people actually, you know, some people get narky when you don't help them straight away and so on. But luckily, we seem to be able to manage it pretty well most of the time. Also, having these study smart zones that I just mentioned before also gives the clients a place where they can think, well, okay, I will go, and they queue there more than they do at the desk. So they're kind of getting a bit more trained about how they're going to approach us as well. But at the beginning of every year, we go to all of the orientation programs. We wear our red shirts and we say, we're here for you. If you see any of us wearing one of these and walking around anywhere in the building or on campus, ask us. We'll help you. That's what we're here for. That's why we want to stand out in these shirts and so on. So it's that approachability, I think, that also earns a bit of respect when they're waiting as well. But we might just be very lucky with our students as well.
I have a question. So I believe you're doing the roving reference. Do you have any particular device to help you to do the roving reference while you're on your floor?
No, we don't have any particular device to help us. It's all quite intuitive, I guess. We do have iPads that staff will carry around, which helps them to look up things on the catalogue or to see to help people navigate the library systems and so on. But generally, no, we're just really physically out there trying to be beacons. And they'll usually come to us. Well, they won't come to us, we're coming to them, but they'll wave or, you know, grab our attention.
So my question would be, why red?
There's a story about that. When we adopted the red shirts, we were not Western Sydney University, we were University of Western Sydney. It's a big difference, isn't it? And our corporate colour was blue. So we adopted red to stand out. Well, 2 years ago, the university rebranded and our corporate colour is this colour. So we're actually looking at it going, we don't stand out as much anymore, but we do still stand out a bit. So,
and obviously you were trendsetters as a result.
We were trendsetters. We do say they stole our colour. So the shirts did go through a few iterations as well. They started off as T-shirts with big eyes and ask me and ask us and things on them, and slowly became more corporate as looking more professional and much more.
They're also fire engine red.
That's true. They wear a brighter red. We're now the corporate red. But, that's the story. We did it originally to stand out because red is the beacon. It's the hey, we're over here. Everybody sees it, and we stood out from the blue everywhere. And yes, that's the story.
We have a question. Thank you.
I'm just wondering when you collaborate with your unit.
That's something you have to ask our corporate department. We don't get involved in that. We just get hopefully some space in the building and we know who's in there and who may or may not be working with us, but we don't get a say in who's actually in there. That's done by corporate university, campus development. So hopefully it's not just because they've got the money, but for example, in Parramatta, we've got PricewaterhouseCoopers above us and we teach business in that building, so there's a synergy there. So they aim for that sort of synergy in the precincts, but in the retail space down below, that can be a different story depending on who the building owner is and actually who they lease to.
Last call for questions. Have any coming online? We'll just have a quick check online. Okay. Well, please join me in thanking Lisa and Anita. and I'm very chuffed to be able to present them both with one of our seminar bags, which you should all have.
Gifties. Good to show them.
Cephalopods.
Cephalopods.
Cephalopods. So there's one for you, and there's one for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having us here today.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.
Have a good afternoon. Okay, so yes, every seminar for the last few seminars, we have had a series of Redbubble merchandise available, which has usually featured a particular theme. And in recent years, we've been able to provide images to attach to some of our bags. And we started first off with T-shirts and stickers, and now we've progressed to everything that Redbubble can possibly provide for us, which includes bags, which are, of course, my personal favourite. And this year's Reader's Advisory Seminar featured the Bombinator frog, which was gorgeous. The image came from the Biodiversity Heritage Library Flickr images, which are available to everybody to use however they wish, so long as they say simply where they got them from. And for the Reference and Information Services Group seminar here today, we feature cephalopods, which is, of course, things like squid and octopus and all sorts of gorgeous creatures. The nautilus is also a cephalopod. So in itself is a learning experience of its own. Everyone should have one. And a notebook, a spiral notebook, hardbound notebook, stickers, coffee cup, scarf, bag, cushion cover. I'll stop there. Okay. Next slide. So coming up, oh no, actually what I'm going to ask you to do while Ellen's doing this bit is to stand and ask the person next to you, whether it be left, right, not the empty chair, an idea that you will be taking away from this last session that we have. Now, you've got a couple of minutes to do this while we get ourselves sorted out. But yeah, just what's an idea that you took away, even if that idea was simply the name Instinct Furniture? Alrighty, do we want to take a seat, please? I'm sure that every single one of you has shared or key takeaway previous session, made a note of it. So having been up since 4 a.m. this morning, I've decided that I have in fact hit that brick wall. So I've hit my very tired spot in the day. Given that I won't be getting home till about 9:30, 10 o'clock, it's going to be a great day. Right now, we're going to hear from some people about Enquiry Completion Rate surveys. And first up, we have Kerry-Ann from Burwood.
Hi everybody, just to give you a little bit of background on Burwood. So we moved to a new library building in January of 2014, so 4 years ago now. In our old library, I think we had 5 or 6 PCs, and in our new library we have 30. So quite a few changes. A couple of years ago we noticed that we were doing a lot of technical assistance, and anecdotally, the staff had said, yes, we spend a lot of time doing this, we spend a lot of time doing that, but we hadn't measured it. And we really had no idea how much time we were spending on doing particular tasks. So one of my colleagues decided that we needed to measure this. We needed to have a look at how we were spending our time on the desk and how it had changed over the years. So our objective was to collect data showing the time that we spent on the information desk providing technology assistance to customers. And then our objective was to potentially use this data as a means to lobby council to improve our IT connectivity. So we did the survey over 2 separate weeks in November 2016 and then in April 2017 to provide a snapshot of the types of the technical assistance provided to our customers and the time that we took to do that. We chose weeks much like the Enquiry Completion Rate, where it's not during a school holiday period, it's during just a regular week of the year. We chose 2 weeks during that time to measure this. We devised a form. We sought feedback from the staff in regards to the categories of technical assistance that we were providing. And we included on the form various categories of request. We had it in time slots, and we measured it in either did the query, was it under 5 minutes, was it 5 to 10 minutes, or were we spending over 10 minutes with this person? So we had all these different categories on the form. So it was quite specific and included information that you don't get on the Enquiry Completion Rate form. So we had categories for audio, ebook, emag, any request to do with, setting up an RB digital account or accessing a magazine or accessing an ebook or an audio book. Email, someone comes in, wants to set up an email account. We all know about that. Internet access, mobile printing, online forms, assistance in navigating to a passport form, and what do I do? Photocopier and printing services, scanning or faxing services, help with the self-check kiosk, access to the Wi-Fi, and access to Word, Excel, or other type of products. So they were all the categories that were included. This is a snapshot of the form. You can see that. So we had it in 2-hour slots. We had all the different categories, and then we had the times that we spent doing it. Okay, the definition that we used for the transaction is one where a staff member assists in the use of the equipment or answers the inquirer's question about the use of equipment and software. Each separate transaction by the customer should be counted as a separate inquiry. Staff were also encouraged to add comments about connectivity down there too. So if PCs were dropping out or if it was slow or whatever, we were asked to note those comments. All this information could be gathered and fed back to IT. So what did the results show from this survey? In the November 2016 survey, the total technology type assistance required was 348 during the week. Not surprisingly, the highest percentage category was assistance with printing and photocopying. Okay, something that can be fairly basic, but that was what was taking the time. 18% for assistance with internet access, 12% for assistance with email. Not surprisingly, assistance with online forms and email was taking the most time. So those were the ones that fell into the category, this is taking longer than 10 minutes to do this. And then when my colleague did the calculations, the total number of hours spent on the technical assistance as a percentage of our weekly opening hours was 33%. So a third of the time assisting people was on these types of inquiries. Now, it would be interesting to run it again, 18 months to 2 years later, because I would suspect that the percentages, some of those might have changed, because we're seeing all the time changes with what we're helping, what types of information we're helping people with. More and more we seem to be getting people that need assistance in navigating to websites and filling out particular forms, because everything is online now, and so that I suspect has increased a little bit more too. The results were slightly different in the April 2017 survey. So we did a few more, 408 that particular week. The results were fairly the same, a little bit higher. 37% of the time spent assisting people was spent on technological inquiries. So that's all I wanted to show you. That's just one way that we created a little survey to do in-house of the technology that we're using, technology assistance that we were offering people, and to show what time we've spent doing it so that we could, lobby council. And we have been able to make some changes, and there are improvements happening with connectivity now. It's probably something also that we will run at other times down the track too. So thank you.
I'm not Jacinta, as you can tell, but I got a message online saying that the screen sharing wasn't working, so I'm unsharing. I'm resharing. And then hopefully.
Hello, I'm Jacinta. Look, I have to apologise from the beginning here. I don't have any data visualisation. I did think about it at one point and I thought, oh, that's going to take me way too long to get sorted. So you'll just have to put up with what I've got. Can you put your hand up if you have done the Enquiry Completion Rate survey before? Okay, so you all know basically what it is. In the last few years, we've been doing it, well, it's always been 4 times a year. The inquiries we've been counting have been divided into information requests and customer service inquiries. Originally, it was just information requests, so we've been changing it over the years. Okay. Am I? It's not moving. Use the mouse, yeah. Yep, good. Okay. So what I'm going to look at is what we don't record, or what is it that we're not able to answer. And also, pardon me, there was a group of us got together to have a look at the definitions to try and tighten them up because they were, a little bit sloppy. And we've done that for both the information requests and customer service requests. So we just want to go through a bit of that and what complete and incomplete actually means. So this is my take on, at my library, I was looking at these results saying, well, it's all very good to know that we can complete a certain amount of inquiries, but what is it that we're not answering very well? So at the beginning, the benchmark in all the literature was that a library should be able to answer about 59% of any inquiry that came to the desk. We weren't very good at that. We were about 54%. And then I started having a look at what we weren't answering. And we've been able to increase our rate of answering inquiries over the time. I don't think it's all just things like staff training and other options that we did were look at the books that we didn't have and how many books, increasing copies. I don't think it was all that. It was all, there was other things like the internet came in, so we were able to get a bit more information at our hands. It wasn't, we weren't relying just on the books in our collection to answer things. So it is nice to know that we've increased from about the 70s to now in being able to answer more inquiries for our customers. So as I was saying, what has made the difference? It's probably things like looking at people didn't want to wait for the last releases, the newest releases to get those, waiting lists of 80 on a copy or the number of items you had. So we've instigated now a fastback collection. So at least if people are a quick reader, they can just grab a book off the shelf of the newest authors and go with that. So our hold lists on our regular collection have decreased. They're not as long. People are getting a bit more satisfied with that. Things like just being able to fill subject gaps, different collections that we didn't have material. As society changed, like there was more blended families. We didn't have material at one point on, how to live in a blended family. So we were looking at trying to find whatever books would help our customers with that. We didn't have anything that would help us with young adult dystopian reader likes, finding other things that matched. So, bringing in those online resources like Novel List and, using online things like fantastic fiction and all those sort of things to get lists and things and teaching the staff that they can use these things at the desk without putting, a great deal of effort in it. It is a really quick kind of transaction that you can do that. Another thing that had made a little bit of it, got instigated was we recognised that a lot of people were ringing up and wanting to know if we had a particular book, then asking if we could put it aside, but they weren't a member of our library. So, no, sorry, you'll have to come in and join, and then we'll get the book brought in from one of our branches for you to collect here. So it was a two-step process. They'd have to come in and join, ask for the book to be brought in, and then they'd have to come back and collect it when it got here. So we moved towards getting an online registration form. It's only a temporary thing, temporary number. All it does is let them place a book on hold so that someone finds our catalogue, they go, oh, it's at the library, all right, I'll join now, I'll place a hold on it, and then when I come in, I can join and create a proper membership then. So there's just little things like that that, you know, mean it's a lot more accessible for people and easier to use the service. Okay, so now we're just moving into having a look at, and with your papers for today, these definitions are all there on your documents that you got as you walked in today. And of course, they will all be on the State Library website so that you can download them again and whatever. I'm not going to, you know, talk too much about them, but I just wanted to it's all there, telling you that information requests are a contact with the library customer where you're basically teaching them something and helping them find something that they've asked for specifically. So an author title request is a specific title, an author request. Each one needs to be counted separately. So if they say, well, you know, Jeffrey Archer's book and a particular title, and then, oh, have you got the next title after that? You must count each of those separately. They're not just one inquiry if you're going to do this. It gives you the best indication of how many questions are being asked. General subject requests are for non-fiction subjects or fiction information. Reader's advisory, requests for fiction or non-fiction subjects for leisure. So they don't just have to be, you know, what's the latest horror item that you've got on your shelves that would be of interest. It could be, you know, I'm reading about geology. I would like to know the latest research there is about what's happening out at you know, Mungo Lakes or something like that. Local studies requests, a request for information, photographs, maps, books, newspapers, journals and other materials that concern the local area. Genealogy, requests for assistance and finding genealogy or family history. Now, genealogy or family history, genealogy is, you gave a definition the other day, Ellen, and it was genealogy is the difference, is the finding of the line, you know, like as in birth, who was born to whom and who married whom. That's your genealogy. The family history side is finding out, okay, what boat did they come out and in, and why? What might have prompted them to come from England along the way? So that's where you're starting to use your British newspaper indexes and things like that to find out the story behind why people might have come. Community information, requests for information or direction to services, programs, activities and facilities in your local area. Community languages is the request for books, newspapers and other material in a language other than English. Here's where it gets a bit tricky. Technology instructions, requests for instruction and guidance in the use of technology. So we just had Kerry-Ann come up here and talk about the inquiries that she got about technology assistance. What we've done in this is divide technology into two areas, instruction and assistance. And so that's why technology instruction has come into this information request definition. Talk a little bit more about that later. And the satisfaction involves the use of one or more tools. Now that's catalogues, your own library catalogue, Trove perhaps, printed, non-printed materials, e-resources, communication with or referral to other libraries or organisations, helping customers with technology. And an example is how to help your customer download an e-book and install the apps. So you're instructing them and using them and informing them about how to use your collection. So that there's a distinction there. The customer service requests are a bit more simple. Equipment troubleshooting is really how to unjam the printer, that kind of thing. And, you know, someone's print job didn't work properly. Administrative customer service, someone's changed their customer registration details and you've got to update the database for them. Technology assistant is helping with photocopying once again. Directional inquiries are, you know, where are the toilets within your area? Or event booking, you know, can you book me in? Or how do I do it online myself? Am I able to? How do I get to see the list of what you've got on? I didn't know you had so many programs, that kind of thing. So really, they're just very clerical, those customer service inquiries. So the technology instruction versus technology assistance. The instruction is activities which require a staff member to have some knowledge which they are imparting to the customer with the purpose of teaching them skills for the future so that they will be able to continue to do what it is that you're giving them the information on next time around and build upon it. So, you know, if you're, they've asked about how do I set up a letter so that I can, you know, start writing to an employer, put a cover letter together. You know, if you're instructing them of, even if it's as easy as, you know, how do I get a capital letter? How do I go down to the next line? How do I only single space? That is a customer instruction. That's something that they will take away with them and be able to bring back and build upon for the future. The technology assistance, however, is usually something that doesn't require too much knowledge outside how the machine works. So the administrative would be managing those bookings and printings. It's a quick little thing that just needs to be done without too much knowledge required to be able to do it. Maintenance, refreshing supplies, you know, putting the new toner in or filling the machine with paper. Troubleshooting. We've recently got some coin machines for topping up our photocopy cards, which are our library cards, and they are constantly jamming. So just, you know, customers get caught doing something like that, you've got to pull the whole thing apart. You become the technician rather than, or a mechanic rather than a librarian, but that's still, you know, just a customer service request. So one of your machines is broken, come and help me fix it, that kind of thing. Complete and incomplete. I keep, every time we have this survey, some staff member starts having an argument with me about what's complete and not complete. It's got to be in the mind of the person who's serving the customer, because you actually never know in the customer's mind whether it's complete or not. So my definition is pretty much, if the customer walks out with something in their hand that they believe will answer their inquiry, then that's complete. Okay. Whether it does answer their inquiry is another thing. Like you can have shown them the shelf and said, well, you know, your inquiry should fit this area, this business area, and if they've chosen a book, well, that's fine. But you don't know if that book that they've chosen is actually going to be the answer for them. You just are working with the inquiry that they've come in with, and hopefully with a bit of a reference interview, you've taken a little bit further than just face value. I need a book on, you know, business studies. Well, and can you give me a little bit more? What sort of business studies is it? You know, are you looking at, you know, personnel, or are you looking at spreadsheets? You know, there's a wide range there. Not complete is covered by interlibrary loan. Well, we don't have it. The person doesn't have it in. The library. My library does not have this book in your collection, and so we have to get it from another library service. So yes, the person will be getting the book, but it's not complete today. The same with referred inquiries, which includes reservations. Even if your library service has, 4 or 5 different branches and you're bringing in a book from another branch, that's not complete today because the customer doesn't have it in their hand. It's something that, possibly in my instance it will be fixed tomorrow, but only if the customer comes in to collect it tomorrow. So although we don't like to think that we're not completing inquiries and would love to add all of those, I offered them an interlibrary loan and they're getting it and they're happy, they've walked away. It is actually not complete. Okay. All right. I did have another little slide that I added at the end after I sent this to, no, that's fine, sent it to Ellen. And all it was I just wanted to clarify how I add up the results from these inquiries, these surveys for the statistical return, because really that's why we do this survey. In a way, it's why we do the survey. It's a number to provide to the State Library so that we can all be paired across our library services. It's also a number that you can supply to your council to say, well, look how busy we are, this is what we're doing. But I'm not sure that for the State Library statistical return, everyone's doing it the same way. So I'm just going to share how I do it, and then, maybe that's a valid way of doing it. And if not, people will tell me. Or, you might follow my lead. So basically, you get an information request survey finished, and Bruce Morgan from, who's that, Parramatta? Yeah, he has done this beautiful spreadsheet where you can just put your information in, and on the last page, which is going to be available for everyone to use if they wish to, it creates, comes to a final sheet, which is the fact sheet, which we used to fax back to State Library. That doesn't happen anymore now. We just keep it for ourselves and give the number at the end of the year. But basically, the top line of that fact sheet says total number of completed information requests on the same day. And that number is the one that you use for the statistical return. Not just like that, unfortunately, because that's only 1 week of the year. You do it 4 times, so you've got 4 weeks of data throughout the year, each of those representing a quarter of the year. So what you then need to do is multiply them by 13, because there's 13 weeks in a quarter, and that takes you from having 1,265 requests in a week to, we ended up with 60,528. So that's how I've always done it, but I just thought I'd let people know that that's how I've done it, and that's the number I use. I would really like to use the total number of requests number, because it's so much better than the ones that are referred or those that are coming in from other library services and not complete. But the number for the statistical return does state it wants the completed information request. So I know that's a lot of information about some numbers and things. Does anyone have any questions that they wanted to clarify about the definitions, perhaps? Weren't you in on the the sessions? Yep.
Have we actually asked this if they'd like to change it from? Because I mean, the survey, that inquiry completion rate, that's the name of the survey, and that's what it's been since day dot.
Mm-hmm.
And although that the survey and all that has changed, we've changed the definitions over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody asked the State Library if they would like to change
The question on the statistical return.
Yeah, on the statistical return, if that can be.
We're now actually collecting both both fields, both the assistance and the inquiries. We've been doing that for a year now because it was shown that they were both really valuable. And actually looking at the definitions, this was actually suggested by a group of people at a Reference and Information Services group meeting. They are not actually major shifts in the definitions, they are really clarification. And a key one is around the technology information and technology assistance, because the technology one was getting everyone flummoxed. And yes, so yes. So it's not that the State Library hasn't been involved in the discussion. The State Library has been involved in the discussion, but we have already started, like last year, changed our collecting so that when the Bibliostat data is available, hopefully soon, but we're still waiting on a few councils who think they're particularly special and don't need to provide their stats the same rate as everybody else. We can't make it all available till everyone has submitted their data. So it's actually really a problem for all of you that there are a few very special councils out there that are not submitting their data in quite a speedy way. It was due in November last year, so, you know, that's why I'm kind of a bit edgy about it by this stage. Yeah, but no, so we're now collecting both fields of data, but...
So Ellen, are they collecting them in a separate question? Or in that one question, which does state total number of information requests completed?
You've now got two fields on the annual statistical return.
But it's, because I understand what you're talking about.
That's actually a bigger statistical question, and I actually have a slightly different view on this. So, yeah.
Is there a reason why we're still...
Yeah, because from your client's perspective, they don't have the stuff yet.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Okay, I'll leave you to it. Thanks, Ellen.
Yeah, like that really is the bottom line, is your client doesn't have the stuff in their hot little hands or on their device. And until that... Now, it's so we're consistent across the state. Because everyone can go, theoretically, we're getting a branch transfer, we're getting a reserve. Like, no one's ever had a branch transfer go astray. No one's ever had a reserve that didn't arrive. So that's also why it's not complete. It's going to be complete in most instances. Now, in case you're wondering about the sheer volume of paper of having the definitions, that's so you pull off your program and you've got the definitions nicely printed out. Because we didn't make them shorter, but there's actually a lot less of them. There's more white space. So, and in terms of statistical consistency, those new definitions will start with the August completion. I did have someone email me going, "You changed them online." And I thought, oh, someone's noticed. But I changed them after people should have downloaded it for the May count. So, my statewide view is, yes, you should be providing us with the data, but the primary use should actually be locally for you. We should be getting the data as a side effect of, oh my goodness, this is so useful for us. So, bring the Library Act in because it actually is free basic reference service to members. So, you're counting your free basic reference service to members. Actually, you're probably not only providing a free basic reference service to your members, you're probably providing it to anyone who comes in or contacts you. Even better, you're better than the Act. Now, no, this is a really lovely form to read. This is now on the website, and the thing is, it's showing those categories that Jacinta talked about. So I don't actually expect you to read this, just to clarify. This is to show that the form online is actually has been changed so that it is easier for you to really track the areas that you're providing services in. But you could choose to vary this, although there will be one instance next year when I'm asking you, don't. Maybe you've done some Find Legal Answers training and you want to track in the next lot of stats the impact. You might have a particular line for, did anyone ask us anything legal? Or did anyone, pay attention to our know your standards thing? Has there been a flow-on effect? So you can change those fields for your own purposes because bottom line, this should be giving you information that helps you make decisions about training and about resources. So, yes, it's lovely that you give us the statistics, even though I'm whiny about the people who are being evil and they haven't submitted theirs yet. But this is information, as you heard from Kerry-Ann and as you heard from Jacinta, that actually can make changes in how your library service is making decisions. So this is evidence-based decision making. So while it's lovely that you provide it to us, this is where it should actually be the key stuff. And this is also where I think it's important to look at your own patterns of use, because I think they're the most critical. Because of necessity, if you're a single branch library service, your stats are going to look really different too if you've got to get an item from branch transfer. Because if you're a single point library service, you don't have a branch to transfer from. So your collection, if it's not on loan, is in one physical building. Makes a massive difference. So I actually think your individual patterns are the key points. So as I say, you can change these around and that's okay. But this version with a lot more fields is going online. Now, there are numbers because there was a lot of discussion about numbers or hash marks, and the numbers won. But if you'd rather hash marks in your library, put it into Word, delete the numbers, save it, do hash marks. Whatever's working best for you. The aim of this is to make the counting simpler, not to make life miserable. But the numbers did get victorious. Now this is available from the stats part of the State Library on Public Library Services. How you find the Public Library Services part of the website? Go to the State Library homepage, go to the bottom, click on Public Library Services. I know, we're at least findable that way. And then follow the, this will, trust me, we'll be emailing out about this, but this is so it's findable. So the new form and the new definition are online. So very generally, these are the areas for the information request. These are the areas for the customer service requests. Now, I want to do something different for the week of the 4th of February. I actually want to collect the data statewide. Now, normally we collect it annually. I'd actually like, as a one-off, to be able to produce a statewide snapshot of what do the information requests look like for 1 week across all the public libraries. Now, I'm saying February next year because, well, actually, I've got to have some unexpected leave coming up, but I figure this will take time for people to go, So, and I am stressing one-off collection because it's lovely that people keep emailing me their statistics, but I don't need them. But for this one, I really will. So the aim is that I get your library service 1 week worth of data for the week of 4th of February for all of those set fields. Because I think it would be really interesting for us as a state to see, I'll just go backwards, to us to see how many local studies inquiries are, asked in a week. How many family history, how many community information, how many literacy. How much of what you do is directional? Like, what does a week across the state of directional inquiries look like? What does that actually, because this would also, getting a statewide overview, let you just kind of go, I do a lot more of that kind of inquiry. So it gives you a one-off opportunity. I figure this is going to be too painful to do it more than once, but maybe every few years, to get the statewide overview. So 4th of February, that collection period next year, I would like all the data. Now, hopefully by then, there will be a spreadsheet that enables you to just punch it through at a top level. But if not, I might be getting the form with 1 week's data written on it for me. Now, I'm really not hoping for that option, but that might be the bottom line. Because I actually do think there is value in this statewide picture comparing your local ones. And also, if you're concerned about statistical continuity, the form didn't change till the new collecting period in the next financial year. So that gives us an internal consistency. So it's only using one method across that time period. I think that's it. So please don't bin your paper. Take it back to the office, peel off the front, and keep this for your definitions for next time.
Do you have any questions for Ellen?
You mean the form or the definition? Yes, I can.
Ellen, am I right that this doesn't include
This includes any format. Yeah. So this is email. If you have a chat service, if like Western Sydney University, you have a video conference service, and I have to admit, I thought that sounded really nice. Yeah, it's however, and really if you're in a public library where people feel that they can talk to you in the supermarket and you're going to answer an inquiry in the supermarket, you could count that as well. And trust me, I do know there are communities where that happens. So,
I do give it to my home library service.
yes,
I have it
yes.
sitting at our, because we take phone calls and the scene. So I have it at everyone's desk that takes phone calls from the public. Every branch, of course, every service desk there is.
I suppose in terms of, yes, we provide this information to the State Library at the end of the year after we've done our 4 surveys. But does anyone take a look at those individual weeks and some of the responses that come back and actually change their service or their service levels in response to what is coming through? You don't make changes. So we've actually tweaked our form a couple of times. We've been consistent because we're very, cognizant that it needs to be consistent across the year. But when those other ones, when you've got those other categories, we count particular things such as our regional gallery is across the hall from us. So we count how many times people come to us and ask us about them. We have council officers upstairs. So again, we count how many times people come to ask us about them. And we've just started counting how many times people ask us, do you have a GP?
Yes, yeah, we did that just recently.
And then
we
I
now
understand
have
that
a
it's
GP
actually,
service.
it's something that we happen to have staff who do that. It's not a service for us. Yeah. So think about that as well in terms of how you might tweak your service in response, direct response to that.
So this is possibly triggering that after I get the statewide data and everybody can look at their own data, this could be a discussion to really consider having in your own workplace around, because I actually think what comes out of this is critical information because it shows we've got a lot of this. Now, I should also say that I think it's really important to look at the 4 data sets over the year. I think that would send me into meltdown if I had 4 lots of this data coming in, although if you think it's a really important thing, I could maybe consider it. Yeah, because I think locally in public libraries you get patterns. And so this is early February, so you've got the start of the school year. It will have a different shape. It probably looks like February the next year, more than it may look like the August or the May measure. So I think it's really important to look at patterns, but I think this is definitely something we probably need to continue working at a bit.
We also, we didn't do any of the PLEG or ECR surveys, our COPs, ever, until the last couple of years. In fact, I think this might be our first full complete year of doing an ECR, and we do it because it's invaluable, and we're using that data to feed back in.
Okay, so very